The new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.
All right, Woods people, the season is going to be here faster than you can imagine. I know you've all been out there dialing in your archery equipment.
Actually, there's a real world out there, and if you're anything like me and my friends, you've been taking your time getting your bow ready.
We'd never advocate for you being irresponsible, but we understand it's pretty easy to end up really busy this time of year.
Hey, I've been busy building brownie points.
Does it work?
Yeah, they don't carry over.
Well, we decided to call up some of the experts to get some of their ideas on some of the things that might help you be more successful this season.
That's a good thing, because my 10-yard pin needs a little work.
Like that doesn't work out there. All right, on the show today, we have got Matt Bateman. He's the National Sales Manager for Grim Reaper Broadheads. Matt, how are you today, man?
Good. I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good.
Well,
I think it's 102 here, and I just ran 2 miles, which is a terrible idea. Actually, don't ever do that if you're down here. But I have a pretty big elk hunt that I've got to get ready for, so you can fit it in when you can. And I understand you're a pretty busy guy too, right?
Yeah, it's definitely that time of the year on my end as far as working in the archery industry and the broadhead end of things. We are crazy busy and trying to get it all handled so that can get out on some upcoming hunts myself. So
yeah.
Things are happening fast right now, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And you've got some stuff coming up real quick, right?
Yeah, actually, out west here, we're based out of Utah, and things open up super early. So our mule deer and elk season opens this Saturday.
Wow.
And normally,
general archery for everyone in Utah opens this Saturday?
General archery for and limited entry archery hunts, draw hunts, everything for deer and elk. Mm-hmm. In the state of Utah, super early opener, especially for elk, opens, this coming Saturday, the 17th. And generally that's my focus. I'm kind of a mule deer fanatic and usually focused on that. But this year I threw a little kink in it, and I'm leaving Sunday on a caribou hunt in Alaska, DIY drop-in caribou hunt. So cool. I'm going to try and hike up and do an overnight, one-day hunt in Utah for deer, and then get on an airplane and head to Alaska. So,
have you ever done the drop-in caribou hunt before? Or is this first time?
I have. I've hunted caribou long time ago, and I actually did a reindeer hunt, classified as a reindeer on one of the islands in the Bering Sea on St. George Island years back.
Wow, cool.
Drop-in type thing. So, but I haven't done an archery drop-in caribou hunt for 15 years. So,
yeah, I feel like posting a picture of like on Instagram of like, hey, this is my reindeer I shot wouldn't go over too well with a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got in fact, the guy I went with made up a little Christmas card one year about how I was on the naughty list for shooting.
Yeah, I was wondering what your kids would think if you told them you did that.
Reindeer, but essentially, I mean, that's what caribou are. They're reindeer that. So there's different classifications depending on how long the herd's been established or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. At the time, it was one of the largest reindeer ever taken with a bow and arrow.
Wow.
But that's been a while back, but it was going to Alaska is always just an adventure, not just the hunting aspect of it, but the logistics of travel and weather and plane rides and different things. So
yeah, it sounds awesome. Are you going with a couple other people that you know and doing that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm taking my dad and my brother on this one. This
Cool.
is kind of out of their element a little bit. So, and then my hunting partner, I do most of my backcountry stuff and serious hunting with. He's coming along, so the four of us are doing it.
Awesome. So I understand that in Alaska you can shoot anything that is lesser on the tag that you have. I don't know how they classify lesser, but are you going up there just to shoot caribou, or if something else comes out, are you going to use that tag for that?
We're just hunting caribou on this hunt. We do, the area we're hunting is open for wolves if we got lucky and saw a wolf. I mean, the odds of that happening with the bow and arrow are slim to none, but that would be that would be pretty cool. But no, this round we're going pretty early. We're going to be hunting the caribou right as they're getting ready to come out of velvet and rubbing the velvet off, and so it's not really a great time of the year for much else. But we'll probably run into, there's certain species up there that you can't hunt without an outfitter, such as grizzly bear and sheep and those kind of species. But no, we're really just focused on caribou on this round, and if we get lucky and see a wolf, we could try and kill a wolf. But,
Are you able to get the meat back, and how does that work? Do you just fly it back or what?
Yeah, so we're using we've hired an air service to drop us in. We're doing one guy at a time in a Super Cub because it's tundra tire landing only. So they'll transport us in with our gear in a Super Cub and drop us, and then essentially we'll be in communication with them. If we kill animals, we have an inReach GPS unit that I can send satellite text messages from the bush, and if we kill animals, they can try and get in. We'll pay a transport fee for them to come in and carry our animals out. And then actually there's a pretty cool service in Alaska if you arrange it in advance, called Alaska Trophy Express, and you can actually prearrange. They have certain cities they come through in Alaska at cold storage units and pick up whole animals, quartered out animals, and you can pay a fee to have them deliver it to the lower 48. They have a couple different routes that they come down through the lower 48, and then just you meet up with their truck. Their truck, they got your animal on board, and it's pretty reasonable if you want to get a whole animal home, all the meat and everything from Alaska. I mean, it's actually pretty reasonable to go that route.
That's cool. I had a good friend of mine whose brother-in-law is stationed in Anchorage, so they all get to go up there and hunt when they get a chance to. And his dad had gone up and killed 2 caribou, I think, and they were doing a freezer clean out, and he had given me the caribou from 2 years past backstraps. And it was probably one of the best things I've ever eaten. And I've eaten a good bit of elk, too. And I've always claimed elk as being, like, the best. But, man, that caribou, I don't know what it was. It was just, it kind of had...
freezer aged.
Yeah, I guess that's what it was. It was aged 2 years in the freezer. I don't know. But it's like, it was that perfect mixture of what I think of, like, as a whitetail and an elk, where you have, like, that very dark, rich meat, but it was... I guess a touch less grainy than elk. I don't know how to describe it, but man, it's good. It is good eating.
Yeah, I mean, I've had caribous are. I mean, I've had good caribou and I've had bad caribou. And honestly, it's like anything. I do a lot of hunting, out west, based out of Utah, and I do a lot of western stuff. Mm-hmm. And I also hunt in the Midwest. I've hunted in Texas quite a lot, and all over the country, and a few places in the world. And really, it comes down to any wild game, like caribou or whatever. I mean, how you take care of it in the field is such a key part of how the meat turns out, and and also how the animal's harvested plays into it. But yeah, I mean, especially when you're dealing with trying to get an animal out of the Alaskan bush, kill it and store it, and then get it on a plane and transport it, etc. It's just really important that you.
For sure.
So you do things right, know how to take care of it and get it cleaned up and kept clean and take care of it right. So that's the key for sure.
Absolutely. So is there any kind of like hey, we're testing next year's Broadhead, so we're going to give a little business subsidy here on a trip like this for you, or is it pretty much just straight out of your pocket?
This one is pretty much straight out of my pocket, something I put together. But I do that pretty regularly.
Yeah.
The owner of Grim Reaper and myself is right-hand guy, and I'm the longest tenured employee here, and I actually am pretty heavily involved with design and development and R&D. And so him and I usually do a trip or two every year where that's really what it's about. We're playing with new broadhead designs or blade designs or different things and strategizing for the upcoming year. So he and I we're going to Montana after I get back sometime in September. We've got deer and antelope tags in Montana. And so him and I will do a trip up there and that'll be our R&D trip, for the year at least to get started. So
yeah,
we do some of that. This one's just kind of a personal hunt I put together, and I work with some other companies and get some content and pictures and things for them.
Yeah.
And testing out a few other products for a couple other companies while I'm on this trip. But yeah, and just mostly a fun trip. Me and my dad and my brother, we lost my mom in an accident this last summer, and we just needed something to get away and spend some time together. And so this is kind of that trip. We're just going on an adventure together and spend some time with each other.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sorry to hear that about your mom, man. That stinks, but it's good that y'all are going to get to go and do this. And there's something about getting real remote that kind of help cleanses a thing like that even more than what it would just time spent together. We go back, anybody that I've ever spent time in elk camp with or whatever, there's some kind of kinship there that's just different. And then to be able to compound that with family is pretty cool. But that'll be great, man.
Yeah, there's no doubt getting lost somewhere where you just literally just have no access to civilization, really, and you definitely can go find yourself by getting into that situation. So no, we're looking forward to it, and I'm the diehard archery hunter in the family. Never really. My dad and brother both have not been on something quite this extreme, a drop-in DIY type trip in Alaska, and watch the Super Cub fly off, and you're on your own and a couple hundred miles from anywhere. It's a little bit of a scary but awesome feeling. So something everyone should get to experience. Is a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And a while ago you talked about we're talking about eating caribou and whatnot. You talked about it really depends on how the animal's harvested on, what it tastes like a lot, and then, of course, meat care. But I've kind of noticed that, too, because I usually end up doing some late-season rifle hunting for does around here, or we head to kind of Central Texas and do that. And a lot of times there's, pretty traumatic wounds involved with that, and you end up with a lot of, bleeding into the meat and stuff like that. But do you find that amongst broadheads, there are different types of broadheads that kind of affect that as well, where you're talking, bigger blades versus expandables or whatever it is? Is one better than the other for reducing kind of that, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the difference in taste?
Truthfully, and I'm well versed in broadheads of all sorts, but just because it's what I do relating to Grim Reaper. We have broadheads, one of the biggest selection of broadheads that exists in the market right now. I think we have the smallest mechanical broadhead that exists, and we have the largest mechanical broadhead that exists, and we have fixed and hybrid broadheads all in between. We have a huge varying degree of broadheads, and it really, I see no correlation to like game meat. It really comes down to shot placement. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, sure.
A good ethical, double lung or heart shot where the animal dies quickly and humanely and doesn't suffer or run 4 miles or whatever. That's key. Whether you shoot it with a little teeny solid steel fixed blade broadhead or a great big mechanical broadhead. Yeah, I've seen, there can be differences in how quickly that animal expires on certain shots or whatever. Mm-hmm. But as far as related to the meat, no, I don't see any correlation there. It really is shot placement and then selecting the broadhead that fits your setup. I mean, that's where a lot of people get lost with so many options out there. They get lost in, how do I figure out which broadhead works for which broadhead I should use? And there's not just a perfect answer for everyone. I mean, there's so many options and so many variables. It really, there's some certain factors you need to consider and pick a good broadhead that fits you and your hunting style and your setup, and then make an ethical shot. That's what it's all about. People get lost in, that so-and-so says you got to shoot this, and so-and-so says you got to shoot this. And really, again, it's knowing the few things you need to understand to pick the right broadhead for you and the animal you're hunting and the scenario you're hunting under, and just making a good ethical shot. That's the key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there, I feel like it's kind of like you walk into a Mexican food restaurant and there's 98, menu items, and you're like, dadgummit, it's ground beef, tortillas, and cheese. How can they do it this many ways? Is there?
And then half of the words you don't understand on the menu either.
Exactly. We've picked up a few in Texas, so we might have a little advantage over a guy from Utah, maybe. But
Utah guys, I look at a menu and I'm like, what's that? What kind of meat is that?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess, like for me, if I'm not on like an elk-shaped diet or something like that, I mean, it's just kind of whatever I feel. So, when you kind of think about it in more of the broadhead selection, how do you not just go with what you feel? Like what factors are you looking at in your hunting style and that kind of thing that leads you to pick certain broadhead styles?
Well, first of all, archery hunting is such a game of confidence and a mental thing. You got to have confidence in whatever you end up going with. So, like I said, number one factor is you need to understand your setup. What kind of energy are you producing with your bow? What kind of speeds are you shooting? Some just generalized information about your setup really plays into broadhead selection. Number two, you need to factor in, okay, what animal I'm hunting. Am I hunting elk, or am I hunting hill country whitetail in Texas that weigh 120 pounds or 800-pound bull elk in Utah? There's those factors and variables to consider. What are your shooting capabilities? Are you going to be trying to shoot something at 60, 70 yards, or are you sitting in a ground blind or a tree stand at 20 yards and over a feeder or whatever? And I'm not knocking any style of hunting, but
sure,
those factors all play into what's going to be the best broadhead fit for me. And you gotta kind of know some of that basic information, and then it's really easy to kind of narrow it down to what broadheads best fit you in that scenario. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, and then some people are scared of a mechanical, and some people love a mechanical, and you got to figure out what you're confident in and what works for you, and kind of some of those general things I just brought up, kind of those general things about your setup and your hunting scenario and animal you're hunting, and then we can narrow it down to what broadhead's best.
Mm-hmm.
So,
something that's kind of become pretty common in the archery world is I think people are starting to understand that if you're shooting a low energy bow, maybe somebody who's shooting 55 pounds or whatever, 26-inch draw, something like that, people are kind of starting to understand that maybe a large expandable isn't the right thing, right? So to go to something more on the fixed blade side of things. And my mom actually made that transition this year. Okay, so you kind of have a disclaimer there. Let's hear it.
Well, so yeah, that's true, but the key word right there was large expandable.
Uh-huh.
And there's a real misconception out there that you can't shoot an expandable with lower KE. You can, and it's not even an argument of, there seems to be this generalized argument about expandable versus fixed blade broadhead.
Mm-hmm.
That's comparing apples to oranges. It's not really, because a fixed blade out-penetrates an expandable on a general basis. It's all related to a couple things. It's all related to cut diameter and blade angle. And, a lot of mechanicals out there now, especially, some of our designs, energy to open the broadhead is almost immeasurable. It's not really a factor, but once that broadhead is deployed, how much blade surface are you trying to push through the animal? How much energy does that take? So I have, a big expandable, I absolutely fully agree with you that, someone with lower KE shouldn't shoot a big expandable broadhead, but there are some really good options out there that are smaller cut diameter mechanicals that have good blade angles when the broadhead blades are deployed, and will actually really perform well on lower kinetic energy. So you can't really, that's one of the things I deal with a lot. People generalize, hey, fixed blade broadheads and mechanical broadheads. Well, again, like I brought up earlier, I've got an expandable broadhead in my line that has 3.5 inches of linear total blade surface.
Ooh.
Huge. One of the biggest mechanical broadheads that exists on the market. I also have an expandable broadhead that it's a 3-blade 1.25 cut expandable broadhead, and it has like less than, 1.6 inches of total blade surface. Huge disparity there. And they're both labeled mechanical broadheads. So, and same with fixed blades. There's a lot of different factors that go into that. So just a quick, 2 years ago I had major shoulder surgery and tore my labrum before season, and I shot all year out west here. I shot a 57-pound bow at a 27-inch draw, and successfully took multiple animals, including a couple longer shots with an expandable broadhead. I completely passed through an antelope at 67 yards with that setup with a mechanical broadhead. The selection that I would shoot at that energy, expandable-wise, is very small, but you can't rule out expandables, for lower moderate kinetic energy setups. Depends on the scenario, and again, the broadhead and the design of the broadhead. So
yeah, sure, and that totally makes sense. And cut diameter is cut diameter. It doesn't really.
Cut diameter is and let me, sorry to cut you off.
It's fine.
One really misleading thing in this industry is how cut diameter is figured and advertised, and there's two different things. The industry measures cut diameter by, you open the blades on a broadhead, you draw a circle around the outside of the blades, and you measure across that circle. So, for instance, if you have a 2-bladed 2-inch cut broadhead, it's a 2-inch cut diameter broadhead. If you push it through a piece of paper, it's got 2 blades at 2 inches. It's exactly 2 inches of total cut.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 1 3/8 3-blade mechanical broadhead that is labeled as an 1 3/8 head, but it actually has just over 2 inches of blade, because if you push it through a piece of paper, it's a 3-bladed 1 3/8. If you measure how much paper was cut, it's just over 2 inches. So, in my opinion, the more important factor to consider, not cut diameter as advertised on the packaging, but actual total blade surface, or what we call linear cut. If you push that broadhead through a piece of paper, how much paper is it trying to cut? That really is what determines how much energy you need to push a broadhead through an animal. So cut diameter advertised on packaging and in the industry can be pretty misleading.
Yeah.
No kidding. If you had a 4-blade 2-inch cut head, it's advertised as a 2-inch cut diameter broadhead, but with 4 blades, it's 4 inches of blade surface. Huge difference from a 2-blade 2-inch.
That's 200%.
So a lot of people don't understand that concept. And I always tell people that's one of the biggest factors in penetration, total blade surface. Number 2, another giant factor that a lot of people don't consider, is blade angle. Mm-hmm. When a broadhead's open, what angle is that blade sitting? Is it a big flat blade angle that you're trying to chop things, or is it a more swept back blade angle that slices? And that's why fixed blades have such a great reputation of penetration. They're small cut, and they generally have a really steep blade angle, or a lot of them have a steep blade angle, and so you don't have all that resistance. Whereas some of these big mechanicals, you have great big long blades that are bumped at a flatter blade angle, and you're trying to chop through things versus slice through things, and so that's where your energy is lost. But there are good mechanicals in between, or that have really moderate cuts and swept back blade angles that actually penetrate incredibly well. So there's a lot to take in, when really looking at broadheads and understanding what goes into penetration. There's a lot to consider.
Yeah, sure. Do you feel like if you went the other direction on kinetic energy, is there ever a point where you're like, you probably don't need to shoot an expandable because they're just not quite as strong as what the fixed are?
Yeah, there's kind of I see that a lot right now with the craze of crossbows.
Oh, yeah.
The last 5 years, crossbows have just gone crazy. And what happens is, all of a sudden you have these guys, I've got 100 foot-pounds of kinetic energy, so I want the biggest broadhead that exists. Well, it's just physics, right? When we're talking the majority of broadhead cells, and I know the numbers because that's what I do is sell broadheads, a huge percentage of broadhead cells, even crossbows or whatever, is 100-grain broadhead. I mean, a gigantic percentage of it. 80+% of everything I sell is 100 grain. So if you take 10 different 100-grain broadheads, and one's this little small cut and one's this gigantic cut, which one's going to be the least durable broadhead? The bigger the cut diameter at 100 grains, the less durable. You're sacrificing durability because you've got longer blades and a longer ferrule and all these different things. So you run into that a lot with crossbows. These guys have a ton of energy, so they think they need a huge broadhead, but at that point you sacrifice so much durability that you plow this giant broadhead into a bone or something at 430 feet per second, and things are coming apart. So there's definitely a threshold there, in my opinion, when we're talking 100-grain broadheads, where you start going in a reverse direction. You got to have enough energy to shoot a certain broadhead or a mechanical broadhead to push it through. But if you have a ton of energy and you're talking 100-grain broadheads and you're shooting a huge broadhead, you're sacrificing some durability. So, those are all factors to consider. What's most important to you? Do you care if your broadhead's damaged after you shoot it through a deer? Do you care if a blade's bent or the ferrule's bent or tweaked or whatever? If you do, then don't go shoot a giant broadhead. If durability is your largest, your biggest, most important factor, then scale it down to something smaller, because we can build more material or use tougher materials or whatever into that broadhead to make it more durable. So, there's a lot of things there to consider, and it's not just cut and dried. Everyone. I talk to guys all the time. Some guys want to shoot, I don't condone this. Some guys want to shoot 10 animals with one broadhead and have it look pristine. Well, a big 3-inch cut diameter, 100-grain mechanical is not your baby, because you're probably, even if it's up to the task of shooting a deer, which it should be, it's not probably going to be up to the task to go for round 2. Whereas, a little fixed blade or a more moderate, smaller mechanical head, you have a much higher probability of shooting an animal and having it be in pristine condition. So, again, it goes back to what's important to you as a hunter. What factors are you looking for?
Yeah. For me, I've kind of been steadily drifting away from mechanicals, and pretty much strictly now only shoot mechanicals that are non-aluminum ferruled, because I really feel like I want that ferrule to remain perfectly straight throughout the animal, and that's going to help me a ton with penetration. Am I right in really avoiding aluminum, or is that kind of misguided?
Well, I'm not going to, we just met, so I'm not going to tell you you're misguided.
You can be blunt with me, Matt. I promise. It's cool.
Again, it really, I'll tell you my story on the flip side.
Okay.
You couldn't in how I hunt and the variety of animals I hunt and out west here and stuff, I will not shoot a fixed blade broadhead, even though I have tremendous fixed blade heads. I just am so set on the features that the right mechanical offers me. That unless I'm hunting in Idaho, which is the only state left that requires a fixed blade broadhead.
Well, they don't have the internet yet up there, and that's the problem.
They're still using horse and buggy and everything up there. But the only state that doesn't allow mechanical broadheads, Oregon legalized them this year, and they were a holdout, and Washington did 3 years ago. But unless I'm hunting in Idaho, I'm absolutely 100% shooting a mechanical head, and that's for elk. That's for all species. I like the accuracy, the forgiveness it gives me in certain scenarios and longer shots and wind, etc. Again, it's my personal opinion, and I've taken nearly 200 big game animals with an aluminum ferrule mechanical broadhead, and I've never tweaked a ferrule. I've never had a broadhead failure, but it's again understanding what I'm hunting, what scenarios I'm hunting, and selecting a broadhead that fits that criteria. If I were shooting my great big 2-inch whitetail special or whitetail extreme, I would expect at some point I'm going to tweak or damage a ferrule, but I shoot a more moderate cut that gives me enough beef into the ferrule that we do a ton of testing, and I'm not scared of an aluminum ferrule, but it depends on the design and it depends on the cut diameter and the grain weight and all those factors. But we use top quality, aircraft quality aluminum, solid, machined out of solid bar stock, and doesn't scare me one bit. And I shoot elk with it. I shoot all kinds of different animals with it. I get that some guys, aluminum, you're thinking of pop can aluminum that you can crush with your hand. But
sure,
there's a lot of factors that I really like in an aluminum ferrule, but it's got to be the right design. So, no, you're not wrong. I mean, again, it's a matter of confidence in what you believe in, and if the last thing you want as a bow hunter is to be at full draw on an animal and have it in your mind, oh man, I hope this broadhead works. Oh man, I hope this broadhead doesn't bend. You need to be focused on getting the job done and making a good shot. So you don't want to, I always tell guys, well, I'm not going to argue with anyone. If you love fixed blades, shoot fixed blades. It's the game of confidence and being confident in what you do and what you use. And I have total confidence in mechanical broadheads. I have total confidence in, well, let me rephrase. I have total confidence in the right mechanical broadheads. I have total confidence in because there's stuff out there I wouldn't use, both in fixed and mechanical. But, I know what features to look at, and I can look at a broadhead and say, okay, that broadhead's going to have the integrity I require out of it. And again, if you're worried about durability, scale the cut diameter back, because that just puts more durability into the ferrule and the broadhead itself. It just is, again, it's just physics. If you've got a big, huge cut diameter broadhead, you've got to take that weight from somewhere to get those big, long blades, and it comes out of the ferrule and the collar and different things. So.
Yeah. So what about on the mechanicals? What do you like in the tip of it? I know they advertise so many different bone crushers, and then you got the more like slicing tips and that kind of thing. What do you prefer there? That's an interesting question. We, for years, we originally started with what we call our razor tip, a bone crushing tip. Kind of like, your Muzzy trocar tip and Grim Reaper's original razor tip, just a bone crushing design that's super durable and designed to bust bone and hold together and been a really proven tip in this industry for a long time. And then the industry went through this craze of like a cut on contact that was, designed to be like a blade cut on contact, right? And so a lot of companies came out with a razor tip or a razor blade in the front of their broadhead. And at that time, we had a original razor cut, and then we went to our newer razor cut that's a kind of a machined bladed cut on contact style tip. But over the last few years, we came up with what we call our pro tip, which is, in my opinion, the best combination of the two. It's an extremely sharp tip, but it still has the integrity to bust bone and hold together. And so, I think the bigger factor is
in a tip, especially on a mechanical broadhead. One, it's got to be durable enough to withstand impact, hit and bone, or whatever. But two, you see a lot of mechanicals out there that the tips, even with the blades or whatever, and you see a lot of deflection issues. So my preference is our new Pro Tip that's extremely sharp and still got integrity. But if I didn't have that, I'd go right back to the razor tip, a really durable, tough tip that's extended out in front of the blades and avoids deflection. But it's the first thing that hits the animal. You got to have something that's going to hold together and not give out from the get-go for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're talking about blade placement on the broadhead there too. You know how far it is up to the head and whatnot. You know your line way better than I do, but I think that Grim Reaper is all front deploy blades, correct?
That's correct. Every mechanical we make is a front deploy, and it's just a key. I mean, it's a requirement on our end that all of our broadheads have a minimum of 5/8 of an inch of tip extension in front of the blades, so that on an angle shot or whatever, that tip hits and gets started on a path in the animal long before that a blade makes contact. Just to, and it doesn't matter. Even our fixed blades have that feature. It doesn't matter mechanical, rear deploy, front deploy, fixed blade. If you hit on an angle and the blade contacts an animal before the tip contacts an animal, I don't care what you're using. It can be a fixed blade or whatever. You can have major deflection. Yeah. So
sure.
It just
why the I guess drastic siding on a front deploy. I'm sure you've got a reason why you're sticking with just that.
One thing that we've had tremendous success for 20 years. One of the most proven broadheads out there, one of the most proven deployment systems out there. A lot of guys went away from a front deploy and is because people were getting tired of bands and O-rings and et cetera. Well, we've never used one. We use an internal spring system. So that's one reason a lot of people gravitated from that system, is just strictly because they didn't like bands and O-rings and having that liability in the field, of those coming off or breaking, et cetera. And so then a couple of the big players in the industry, really promoted and pushed the rear deploy system. But there's a couple other reasons. One, don't fix it if it's not broke. Our broadheads continue to perform and outperform so many out there. But two, if you really look at it, it's left the door open for us to create so many different configurations of broadheads that a lot of these rear deploy broadhead companies cannot do. You don't see good 3 and 4 blade mechanical broadheads with rear deploy configuration very often because it's just hard to build. So it's left the door open for us to do, we have 3 blades, we have 4 blades, we have 2 blades, we have hybrid configurations. And with our, there were faults with a lot of over-the-top deploy systems out there, but Grim Reaper has not had those same faults. In fact, that's where Grim Reaper came from. The owner of Grim Reaper, still the owner of Grim Reaper, when he invented Grim Reaper broadheads and our spring system, our blade retention system, he dissected what was on the market 20 years ago and figured out, okay, here's what I don't like. I don't like these tips being close to the blades. I don't like the rigid connection of the blade to the ferrule to where when it opens, it's a lever arm that pushes the ferrule to the side. And I don't like this and this and this. He dissected it, and then he one by one, he checked off a way to resolve that problem and created Grim Reaper broadheads, still to this day, unique proprietary blade retention system with a spring. And each blade rides independently on that spring and can cam back and open independently without a rigid connection to the ferrule, and the tips extended out and et cetera. And it's just proven to be a performer for the last 20 years. And then as the rear deploy craze took off, we looked at it and nothing was outperforming what we could do. And then we've been able to add 3 and 4 blade configurations that other people can't do. And so, there's not saying that we won't ever have rear deploy options, but, and we're able to do a lot of things that that others can't too with our design.
Yeah, that's cool. I kind of like sticking to your guns. That's kind of a good quality right there. So,
but to tell you, if we ever do a redeploy, it'll because we feel it's better. Than anything that exists.
But, not just to sell something.
Right now,
right?
not just a marketing ploy, and that's one thing we really preach as a company. We're kind of one of the last men standing established broadhead companies in this industry that are still under original ownership, independently owned. We're not owned by a big conglomerate or investment group. We haven't sold out or changed hands, and we just make broadheads. We don't make 10 other products. We make broadheads, and our focus is there, our passion is there, our expertise is there. And sometimes that gets lost when it's interesting. You look at these original owners and creators of products, they're just super passionate, and the drive is to create a quality product because they just love it, and they're invested in it emotionally and financially and mentally and all these different things. And then the company changes hands, and that gets lost sometimes. And that's what's really cool about Grim Reaper is we're one of the longest established broadhead companies in this industry that is truly still independently owned under that original ownership. Doesn't have a bunch of other things. We're getting pulled in different directions. We just do broadheads. That's why we have so many, and that's why we feel like we have the best. We just make broadheads.
Yeah, you could write 100 verses to that same song of, man, this is a great product. I'm so glad that this is being made. And then they sell out to some big conglomerate, and then it goes way downhill. That's just the way it goes in the hunting world, and it kind of stinks. And I'm glad that y'all aren't there. So that's cool. So tell me this. Okay, so you said the reason y'all make something is the only reason you would change something or whatever is because it's the best, or it's going to be the new best way of doing it or whatever. What's the deal with hybrids? Because I feel like I don't know. I just can't see it being the best. I feel like it's more of a catch-all. You know what I mean? Like it's just somebody just don't know what they want to do, so they just get a hybrid. And they're like, it's got on contact, it's got a big head, but then it'll go and get real big once it hits something.
Right. Yeah, I get that question actually pretty regularly, and again, it's it's like you walk up to into a gas station and there's 4,000 different beverages in there, and half of them you're like, man, I would never touch that.
Yeah.
But everyone has a little bit different mentality and something they're looking for, and to me, a hybrid. There's those people out there that can't wrap their head around a mechanical, and maybe it gives them some confidence to know that, hey, I at least have 2 fixed blades. And if the mechanical works, then bonus, but at least I have a fixed blade broadhead. There is a little bit of that mentality. Some guys, just want that assurance. One way I look at it, with one advantage I can see personally in knowing broadheads really well and testing broadheads a lot, etc. It opens the door a little bit for those people that may not have the energy to be confident in shooting a full-fledged larger mechanical. It opens the door for them a little bit, because one of the disadvantages, I guess you could say, to a mechanical is if you don't pass through an animal and that broadhead stays internal, the blades close and then you're not cutting.
Yes.
But with the hybrid design, if you do leave that broadhead in an animal, say you shoot, for instance, I have quite a few guys taking our new micro hybrids on elk hunts and moose hunts and stuff this year where they're just not sure they're going to blow through. They have that confidence that they still have a couple exposed fixed blades in there doing work for them as that animal runs off. And that's kind of their mentality of thinking, hey, I'm going to shoot this hybrid because it gives me a good cut. It gives me it's going to be devastating, but I don't feel like I'm going to fully pass through a moose. So I want something still working for me internally, because it makes a difference, if that broadhead's inside and it's got exposed blades and it's, it sounds gory, but we're killing these animals by bleeding them out. And if that broadhead's waving around in there, cutting more tissue and more lungs, etc., then that animal expires quicker. So that's one, the true advantage to a mechanical is pinpoint accuracy, but you want to achieve a pass through, because if you don't get that exit hole, or if that mechanical stays internal, by law they have to close. You can't lock them open, or they're considered a barbed broadhead. So they have to close up, and if they will, it will 100% of the time. If I leave a mechanical head, one of our heads in an animal, and it runs off, that broadhead pulls back an inch or two, and the blade's shut, and now the broadhead's closed internally and not really doing what a hybrid or a fixed blade could do. So that's one factor to consider. But other than that, I mean, people do question, hey, why a hybrid? If you're going to shoot a mechanical, just go all in. If you want to fix, just shoot a fix.
Yeah, but, and I never really thought about that, and that's cool. I'm glad you brought that to my attention. And I don't know, I think after we talked today, I wasn't completely like doing away with mechanicals for forever, but I really kind of think I understand a little bit more about the right thing and what it's going to take, because really my whole quest has been towards getting pass-throughs, because I just feel like, especially with as much tree stand hunting as we do for whitetails and stuff, that second hole is just imperative, because that's the one that's on the lower side of the deer, and that's where you're going to get your blood trail from. So that's
right.
what it just would be so much better to always, well, maybe not always, but at least do everything you can to have the chips in your favor to get that second hole. So that's cool, man. I might have to give the old expandables another thought or two.
Take a look at it. And I'm in the same boat, and I want that. I hunt whitetail yearly in a couple states too, and that exit hole is your drain plug for sure, lower on the body, etc. And I want a pass through, and I get a pass through every time. But look at a moderate cut diameter mechanical with a good blade angle, and it'll penetrate like crazy. It's when you start trying to push these big, huge, flat blade angle broadheads, then it's a little bit of a gamble if you square up a couple ribs or whatever. But if you take in consideration, I'm a huge fanatic and a huge advocate of a moderate cut mechanical with good blade angle.
Yeah.
And that just for all across the board, that just has served me well.
Yeah. Well, I was on y'all's website earlier today, and it seems like you've got just a little bit of everything that someone would want in a broadhead. So if they, if one of our listeners wants to go take a look at what Grim Reaper's got, where should we send them?
Yeah, so check out our website. It's www.grimreaperbroadheads.com. And like you said, we have one of the most diverse lines of broadheads that exist, fixed, mechanical, hybrid, and we also have the largest diversity of cut diameter and grain weight, ranging from 75 grain clear up to 150 grain with a lot of different configurations. So, really and 100% made in the USA, all of our products. So
that's a big deal, man.
For sure.
It's cool that y'all have been able to, be competitive price-wise and have, that label of 100% made in USA. And I'm sure that kind of helps attribute to the durability and stuff of some of your aluminums and stuff like that you're using in ferrules and stuff. So it probably helps give you that confidence and, gives hunters the confidence. It's just cool to see that. So I applaud you for that, man. And then the just y'all's long-standing nature here in the broadhead industry, is kind of a testament to what you can do. So very cool, man. Do you have a 200 picked out that you're going to go kill in one day? Is that kind of the idea? Is that why you only need one day for mule deer this season, or what's the deal?
Oh man, I wish it worked that way. It's certainly a possibility that could happen, and it has happened. But usually, the country I'm hunting, it's rough and it's extreme, and it can happen and has happened, but I certainly don't bank on it. But it's I won't say it's out of the realm of possibility that could happen this Saturday, and I may end up in a pickle trying to get a deer off the mountain and fly to Alaska on Sunday. But if I do, we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
If not, we've got a pretty long extended season here in Utah for archery, and I'll get after it when I get back. But,
it's awesome. Not a bad problem to have if that was to happen. If we were closer, I'd come help you pack out, but it was just too far, man. I'm sorry. So.
Well, I'd probably give you guys from Texas maybe some coordinates, but everyone else here locally, I'm not going to share that information.
Cool. Well, next time you want to come down and shoot some of our 120-pound deer, just give us a call, man. We'll put you on them.
I like all types.
Yeah. So. Exactly. That's
hunting's hunting. I always get asked what my favorite hunt is, and I generally just say whatever one I'm going on next. So.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That is awesome. Well, good luck with this next little adventure in Utah and Alaska, and good luck the rest of the season, man. If people want to, kind of maybe check out specifically those hunts and what you're doing, can they view that content anywhere, or they just need to follow Grim Reaper on?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a personal Instagram page. It's matt.s.bateman is my handle on Instagram,
cool.
and so they can check that out, and they'll probably share a little bit of it up on Grim Reaper Broadheads Instagram and Facebook pages as well. But you bet. Hopefully here in a couple of weeks we'll have some pictures of not just some dead animals, but just the adventure of and the beauty of Alaska. It's just amazing, and this time of the year. So look forward to getting a bunch of good photos, and most of all making some great memories with my brother and dad and one of my best friends. So. Yeah,
that's bad at the bone, man. Can't wait to see it. We're going to include all that information, including the Grim Reaper website and stuff in the show notes down below for listeners. Matt, thank you so much, man. It's cool to get to talk to you and your extensive knowledge of broadheads, but even more just your passion for hunting and adventure that goes along with it. So thanks again, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Been fun, and best of luck to you guys this year.
Cool. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Matt.
Understanding this stuff is really something I feel I can take my archery game to the next level.
Absolutely, man. Guys, make sure you go subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
The new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.